Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. You should be allowed to start your video and you should be allowed to unmute yourself, but we do limit our participation just to avoid any Zoom bombs. We want to keep our conversation here focused on wildfire resiliency. My name is Genevieve Bertone. I'm the communications manager for Permit Sonoma. You can see on your screen, hopefully you can see the slide deck, and that we have an all-star lineup tonight. Excited to share our content with you. Feel free to go ahead and find your chat and put what you're hoping to learn in the chat if that's comfortable for you. And that way we can make sure to address it. Any comments or any questions, you can also put in the chat and we'll address that at the end. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted to our website. I'd like to introduce Alda Lopez, our project manager and senior environmental specialist, for a note about our translation tonight.
Thank you, Genevieve. Thank you. Genevieve, back to you.
Yeah, we will be posting this in English and Spanish to our web. And if you have any questions in English or Spanish, please put them in the chat. You can start your video and you can unmute yourself, and you definitely should be able to use the chat. I'm just going to confirm that now. Yep. And we're going to go ahead and get started now. Next slide, please. Sorry, I should introduce our fire marshal for Sonoma County. Pardon me, I forgot I had a transition there. It's my pleasure to introduce Sonoma County Fire Marshal Steve Mosiurchak. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name is Steve Mosiurchak. I'm the fire marshal for the County of Sonoma. Today, we're going to give you a good education on what our program is about. We're going to recognize the appropriate fire districts that are responsible within this project area. This is meeting 2 of 3. So this is for the Lower Russian River area where you fall in the Sonoma County Fire District. The roles and responsibilities of collaborators. So that includes fire districts, state representatives like CAL FIRE, non-governmental agencies, as an example, like Fire Safe Sonoma. This includes the residents, fire safe councils, firewise and HOAs, etc., knowing what each person's roles or responsibilities would be as it pertains to the information that you are going to be presented today. And part of the goals is empowering and motivating the residents after receiving this information, the assessments, knowledge of your properties, and understanding the resources that will be available to you after these assessments or this presentation. The next slide. One of those examples of resources is our countywide chipping program. So if this empowers you to do defensible space around your property, one of the free resources the county provides is year-round is our free chipper program. It's available to all residents in Sonoma County. The links are available down below, which is for our chipper program. It'll let you understand the guidelines, the application process, and how the whole program works. And again, it's free, and you get up to 2 chippings per year with this program. Feel free to email the email address shown there or give us a call, and our admin staff would be happy to assist you with anything about our free service. Next slide.
Thank you. Yeah, our Wildfire Resilient Communities program aims to promote whole community wildfire resilience in 3 select communities. These communities are the Lower Russian River area, Marquess, Larkfield, Wick, and Pangrove, Stone Mountain area. The program aims to accomplish this via education, providing free home hardening and defensible space assessments, and coordinating across agencies. Next slide, please. This program is funded by a phased FEMA grant through the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program, or also known as BRIC. Phase 1 is active and in process. This includes program and project planning, outreach events like this workshop, and assessments. This phase concludes at the end of next September. Phase 2 would fund actual treatment work, including funding for home hardening and defensible space implementation on private properties and vegetation management activities in the wildland. However, FEMA in April of this year posted an advisory online that they are canceling the BRIC program nationwide while allowing certain projects like ours to continue in their current phase. We have not received communication from the federal government that our grant has been canceled. To remain nimble, we are seeking other funding opportunities to cover the potential loss of BRIC through other grants for implementation work. Next slide, please. The heart of what we're doing right now with the program is our assessments. These are educational only assessments, not code enforcement inspections. There is no enforcement associated with this program. We are able to conduct curbside assessments from public right-of-ways, but would love to see more people sign up for our full assessments for our qualified assessors, walk your property, and identify potential fire risk vulnerabilities property and summarize it in a report. These are available at no cost to the property owner. Please sign up or tell your neighbor to do so you can get one So you can get one before the rainy season posture assessments. And that being said, I'll now like to pass it off to Kelly on Stafford and our fire prevention team. Thank you.
Thank you, Aldo, and thank you everybody who's here for showing up tonight. It's great to see a lot of familiar names in the audience out there. We have a minor unfortunate event, which is the picket fire in Napa, which has, of course, drained our wonderful Ben Nichols, Division Chief Ben Nichols. He's doing another massive event for the folks over in Napa tonight. So he can't be with us today, but they are an active partner in everything that we do at Permit Sonoma. And with Cindi Foreman, Fire Marshal, and Division Chief from the Sonoma County Fire District. CAL FIRE is a state firefighting agency, and Cindi works for your local fire district. I work for Permit Sonoma, or will until the 15th of next month, when I will be retiring, but I work in the Fire Prevention Division, where I've been doing work exclusively focused on wildfire risk mitigation for about 20 years now. So I am going to pass it to Cindi to talk a little bit about her district and the things that she wants you to.
Thank you, Carol-Leon. Good evening, everyone. And again, thank you so much. I think I say this at every community event that I go to. I love engaging with people who are like-minded about how to be resilient, how to be fire safe, and how to take our power back against Mother Nature a little bit. We appreciate all of you being here tonight. I do want to share a little personal piece for me. One thing that I often talk about when I'm referring to the area of our fire district, because it is so large, but I have this very intimate understanding and connection to our Rio Neto, Guerneville areas, because I grew up in the Santa Cruz Mountains in a little town called Felton, which is very much right on a river. Used to be a predominantly vacation home, summer cabin kind of community. So the tapestry of Guerneville and Rio for me is very intimate and familiar and very comfortable for me. And I often say when I'm at events, if you stuck me in the middle of the redwoods somewhere, I don't know if I could tell you if I was home or if I was at my home in Sonoma County. My investment in this community is not just our fire district at large, but it is those intimate investments in our individual communities within the fire district. And I just wanted to share that for a minute. Moving into sort of who we are, Sonoma County Fire District, as I said, is a large fire district that covers a large amount of the unincorporated area, particularly in and around the Santa Rosa area. We do stretch all the way up to the Napa County line and through Forestville, Rio Neto, and then we also have the area out in Bodega Bay. So we have a large swath of land, but we have built a collaborative agency that is working really hard to provide a higher level of service to our community. So I won't toot the horn anymore, but what I will also say is we could never have done this, and we could never continue to do the outreach and commitment to our communities. We could not do that without the strong collaboration and support of, first of all, our partners at Sonoma, at the County of Sonoma. And Chief and his team have been amazing collaborators and partners. Everything from funding projects to the CHIPPR program to engaging in community outreach on a level that we've never seen in this county. Thank you very much to our county partners. And then CAL FIRE, our CAL FIRE partners are also an intimate partner with us. And just a quick kind of tell you how CAL FIRE and local jurisdictions or your Sonoma County Fire District work is CAL FIRE is a state fire agency, which means they are responsible for the watershed and the forest. So essentially, if we have a vegetation fire in the state responsibility area, which much of Rio Neto and Guerneville are, there still are some areas that aren't, but much of that area is in the state responsibility area, which means essentially CAL FIRE is responsible for putting out those fires and paying for those fires. Doesn't mean that we don't respond, doesn't mean that we don't respond together and that we don't work collectively, but ultimately that state responsibility land. So our CAL FIRE partners have a very vested interest in our community because it is their community. There are areas of Rio Neto and Guerneville that are in what we call local responsibility areas, so not essentially in the watershed, in those protected forest lands, but still have that same protection from from both your local jurisdiction, Sonoma County Fire, as well as our CAL FIRE partners. So we respond across jurisdictions, we respond across LRA and SRA, but I just wanted to touch on that for a minute because we didn't have that benefit our CAL FIRE partners being here. And another piece of our CAL FIRE partnership is they also have massive investment in our community grants. They are doing fuel projects. We've got CAL FIRE crews, engines that are committed to doing projects within our communities to help create better evacuation zones, create ridge-top fuel breaks, shaded fuel breaks, wildfire calming zones. So we work really hand in hand with our partners at CAL FIRE, and I want to make sure they get a shout out tonight. So with that being said, there's lots of programs and lots of opportunities, even though we're getting that message from FEMA that some of these grants may be put on hold, there's still plenty of opportunities within the community, within Sonoma County and within the state and within the federal government to find funding for projects. Measure H, I'm not going to go deep into that, but a tax measure was passed called Measure H, a half-cent sales tax that is roughly designed to seed about $62-ish million into the fire service across Sonoma County. And that tax measure is on the ground as we speak, and those funds are being used as we speak to create a more resilient and fire-adapted community. We're going to be talking tonight about home hardening and defensible space. That's where you can take your power back. That is something that you have control of that we don't. Home hardening can be very affordable and it can also be very expensive. Defensible space can be very affordable and it also can be expensive. But we're going to help try to guide you tonight on how you can navigate those options and ideas to help make your property more defendable, because what we're looking for is we bring the offense. We need you to do the defense. So we need you to make your properties defendable. And that's not just defendable for you and your stuff and your home. That is also about making that property something that we can commit our firefighters and our fire engines to when that fire comes through. Make that property so that we can survive and stay there to protect your home. So again, we bring the offense, you bring the defense. Emergency preparedness and planning, that is on you again. We are providing the offense on that. There are multiple resources. 2017 gave us all a shakeup, and we've come a long way since then. And things that you can do for emergency preparedness are everything from being registered for alerts, whether that's NIXL or SoCo alert. Watch Duty's been a massive tool for the picket fire. I don't live in Napa County, but I'm on Rebley Road and I live pretty close. And so I have kept my alerts on for the picket fire, and that has been very empowering for me. We also have the wildfire cameras. So there are plenty of ways for us to stay tuned in and engaged in what's going on around us. And
we do have links for all of those coming up a little later in the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Caroleon. And it's really important that often our 911 dispatch center can get overwhelmed with phone calls. And a lot of those are people saying, hey, what's going on with a fire? There's a fire in me. I see smoke. Boy, we could really reduce that number if people would just take their power back and start tapping into some of the resources that are available, including social media platforms that are amongst all of our agents. Moving into community collaboration and education, what we want is, I always say, I'd like us to be a little bit more Mayberry, and some of you may catch that and some of you may not. But where I'm going with that is get to know your neighbors, get to know the resources within your community, get to know the soft spots or the vulnerable spots in your community. Do you have people that need assistance? Do you have seniors that maybe do not have that technology tap to stay abreast of things? Do you have hoof stock that you need to evacuate quickly and you need support? There's all of these things that as you come together as a community and get to know your neighbors, it's amazing how much you can build each other up and strengthen each other and have each other's back. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindi. That was awesome. Those things are all so important. What we'll be talking about for the next couple of minutes, and I'm going to be going through really fast. This is not intended to really tell you how to do stuff, but what we would love is if you, wait, what was that about? Please put your questions in the chat. and we'll try to get back to them in as we move on in the question and answer period at the end. We've learned so much about wildfire in the last 10 years, unfortunately, because we've had so much experience. And one of the most important things to really know about that, and that's when you're talking about the science of exactly how to homes ignite. We really know a lot more about that than we did when I started my career 20 years ago. The biggest risks to your home are typically within 30 feet. Those are the things that are the most likely to burn your house down, and even more so within 5 feet of your house. And so that's really where we will be concentrating tonight, are on some of those vulnerabilities. And there are tons of solutions to problems that can be done for low or no cost. And that's really where we all have to start. It's our responsibility to move all this forward. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not easy. I understand the challenges as well as any of you, because I'm doing it all the time too. But we're hoping that we can help you see the high points of what we really need to get going. Defensible space is the first thing that I'll talk about, which is basically it's 100 feet from the radius of your structure or to the property line, whichever comes first. So if you have a small lot and your property line is 10 feet from your house, that's the extent of your defensible space. You have a large lot, you've got 100 feet to contend with. As I said before, the biggest risk to your home is probably within 5 feet of your home. So that zone 0, which is new to coming to California state defensible space law soon, comes out of the research that we've been doing and why that's so important. That is really where the secret sauce is for trying to keep your house from burning down in a wildfire. So we'll be talking a lot about zone 0. Zone 1 goes from 5 feet out to 30 feet, and that's a lean, clean, and green zone where we really don't want a lot of dead and dying. We don't want crowded plants. We want spaces between plants, and we want space between the ground and any tree cover there is. So limb them up, separate them in that area so that fire, if it's coming towards the property, wants to drop to the ground and not have as much of a head of steam as it heads toward your house. Zone 2 is where you can really do more of that work if you have a large property. Zone 2 from 30 to 100 feet is where you want to start looking at wildland fuels reduction is more. So there may be selectively removing crowded trees, and again, you're limbing and removing dead stuff from that area. But it's a much lighter touch than you have to do in the 30 feet and certainly less than the zone 0. We do have rules that regulate all of this, including the state law, which has defensible space law, and county code also has it. Now, really quick, we have a quick poll, which we're trying to gauge. How do you feel about what you have now? You can throw some quick responses in there, and we'll discuss those in a little while. So far, we're seeing a lot of my space is really good.
That's encouraging.
Actually, pretty good, but I could do more. I think that's how most of us feel, certainly how I feel. And there are a lot of works to do. And yeah, it is a continuing challenge, and it is really important. And I will be talking exhaustively about zone 0, but I can't tell you how important it is to start at the house and work outwards as you work on your defensible space. So the other part that enters into what we're talking about, the things that will burn your house down, is the home hardening side. Now, 20 years ago, I would say home hardening and no one knew what I was talking about. Now, pretty much everybody knows it's a thing, but I think that there's still a little misunderstanding about exactly what it is. And oh my gosh, how do I do that? There's a lot you can do. There's a lot of resources you can tap to help you figure that out. Zone 0 is kind of part of your home hardening, and we'll talk more about that. Your roof, your vents, your wooden attachments, windows, and siding. We're going to be talking about all of those. And the biggest risks in all of this is not as you might expect from the giant flaming fire front, which is how most folks out there think of the risk, as the big flames hitting your house. It's probably from something the size of a pea, which is an ember. So we're going to be talking a lot about embers moving forward, because they are responsible for somewhere between 80 and 90% of structure loss. I err on the 90% side. I think most homes are taken out by something the size of a pea. So quick poll that you guys can also drop your answers in about your structure hardening would be great. So you can do that while I move on to my next slide, because I am running out of time already. I want to show you this quick video, which I might want to wait a second to start, because you can't do a poll and watch a video at the same time. This is very poor quality and it's a very old video, but I'm really attached to it because this is the best I've ever seen for what happened, exactly what an ember ignition looks like.
And I agree. Carol Leon's been using this same video for a couple decades. And when she said, should we use this? I'm like, this video, I don't care how old it is, it speaks speaks volumes.
It does. So we have a fire. We have CDF. That's how old this is. And CAL FIRE for ages. And right here, what do we have? We had a broom, which you'll be able to identify in a second. But I want to call your attention to all this stuff. So we had that broom that caught on fire that's under a wooden deck with a pile of flammable items left around it. That was probably something the size of a pea. Would that have taken the house out? Yes, that fire would have taken that house out if the firefighter hadn't been there to mitigate that risk. This is how we need to think about this. Think small is really important. So let's run through some of the stuff. This is another image that Cindi really wanted in here because this is from the LA fires, and holy cow, this is what embers look like when they hit flammable mulch. So don't think that those risks aren't there. They are. So,
And I think, oh, sorry, you're challenged for time, but I think that we get in a mindset that we live in a curb and gutter neighborhood and we don't have to worry about that. And I will tell you, when the Kincaid fire rolled into Windsor, I was in those curb and gutter neighborhoods and we were ripping fences off of houses because we were so concerned about that home-to-home ignition. This is not just meant for the wildland urban interface. This can actually have a massive effect in our valley floors in our curb and gutter neighborhoods.
Yeah, it's equally important all across the county because virtually the whole county is at risk for wildfire. I think we all get that now. Mulch is one of the things we'd really like to see you remove from your zone zero. Once this becomes part of defensible space law for the state, you will be required to remove that flammable mulch from zone zero. So this is a great time to get ahead of that before someone demands that you do it. Mulch can look like a lot of stuff. It can look like gorilla hair. It can look like wood chips. It can look like hay, some people use. Those things are great if they're farther from the house. If that stuff is within 5 feet of your structure or 5 feet of your deck, you need to move it out. And you especially don't want to let it pile up. This is a Russian River photo that I took years ago where the redwoods had just been dropping duff, which is built up all the way up into the wooden siding of the house. You need to keep that raked back. Ideally, you can do that 5 feet with a gravel pathway or a cement pathway or whatever you want to do. You want a non-combustible surface next to the house. Also within zone zero, within that 5 feet, honestly, no plants is best, but the code, the law, the state law is going to allow for some plants if they're carefully maintained, separated, and not too big. Your insurance company, however, may say absolutely no plants, and we won't insure you if you take them out. So this is something we all have to get used to. This is a very different vision of what our homes look like. It's going to be difficult for people to implement, but the science is there. It's a really good idea. Trees over roof are a huge problem, especially for those of you in the redwood zone. I understand that, and quite a challenge to deal with, but it is something that you need to think about. The most common risk I see is stuff. People, we all have stuff, right? We have porch furniture on top of our deck with cushions, and we have wicker baskets full of things, and we have garbage and recycling bins that are underneath the eaves of our house. We have barbecues with fuel and doormats, which are right next to our sliding glass door. That's a risk. Any of these risks that are within 5 feet of your home should be moved away, changed out to a non-combustible, because that is a high probability of getting you. Those garbage cans especially are really high risk. Another thing to really look at on your house is your fence. Cindi alluded to fences earlier. This is a photo from the Tubbs fire, which is a very clear indication of what fences look like in these home-to-home ignitions. That fire carries itself across the fence straight up to the house, gets the house going, and off it goes. A mere 5 feet of non-combustible, like a steel gate or chain link or whatever you come up with that's non-combustible, where that fence attached to the house is enough to stop that problem. That's really an important thing to do. We've clearly seen that. Decks come with risk. Absolutely. Most of us have one. I got rid of my flammable decks. Mine are non-combustible now, but a lot of the fires that start on decks start from something that was on the deck that got going. So make sure that you have no combustible items on your deck, especially in red flag conditions. So if you have to have something on the deck, like your furniture that you sit on, makes sense, move it in before in red flag days. If you can, replace your deck with a non-combustible element. That's It's not always possible. And if you can't do that, make sure you keep it very clean, both above. So keep those places between the deck boards, keep the redwood duff out of there, and below. Other things to really look for as you walk around your house. Do you have a trellis that has plants growing on it that's made of wood that's attached to the house? You're going to want to think about moving that away. Piles of wood, storage containers. Really think about anything that's next to your house that can bust and look at how you might be able to live without that. So vents are another thing that I have to touch on very quickly. Most homes are vented so that moisture doesn't build up and rot the roof, which is important. They can look like all kinds of things. They can be these little bird's eye vents in an open eave. So these little round holes on that second image. They can be at the gable end. They can be on the foundation. Some people have roof vents in their roofing. The code for that used to be a 1/4 inch. Now it's 1/8 of an inch. So there are two ways to deal with this. You can buy a product that's certified by the state fire marshal to prevent flames, heat, and embers, or you can just cover your existing vents with 1/8 inch or less mesh. That's a pretty doable thing for most folks. While we're talking about openings, things like dog doors. If you've got a dog door, it's a vulnerability. Make sure that you close it before you evacuate. And if you can live without it, they're hard to mitigate. Roofs are important too. A Class A roof, which can withstand wildfire exposures, is only a Class A roof as long as it's good for. So if you bought a 20-year roof, on year 21, you need to start thinking about replacing it. It's not Class A anymore. All of the roofing covering material, like your asphalt shingle and the things that are under it, together give it that Class A rating. A lot of people have no idea what their roof is or how long it's been up there or if it's good. If that's the case, you might want to get a roofing guy to come out and give you an inspection and replace it with a resilient Class A roof. In the meantime, keep it as clean as you can. Yes, I understand what a challenge that is when you live under a bunch of redwood trees, but that's why it's so important. There are mitigation things you can do. In a house like this, the risk isn't to the roof, the top image I'm looking at. The risk is to the wooden walls that are next to the roof. And there are mitigation measures you can take to protect that little bit of wall with a non-combustible element. If you know those leaves are going to pile up there, and they're going to. You can clear the house out the day before, and when the wind comes up, they're going to drop again. But do be careful with your roof. Windows are another very important risk on your house. Windows fail in a variety of ways. This photo that you're seeing here on the far left, there was a house fire that's there behind the orange tape. That was just a single house on fire. Some of these redwoods did burn, clearly. And the window, which is the next image, is circled in red here on the big image, and then again here. So the radiant heat from that fire was enough to crack that window. This is a double pane window. The second window never failed. The second pane never failed. So this worked really well. Tempered glass is super important. Non-tempered glass fails at about 233 degrees, whereas tempered glass fails at 635 degrees. So what you want is a dual pane tempered window, preferably both tempered panes, but one is good enough according to the code. One of the things that can replace, you can use to replace is the Sonoma County Energy Independence Program, which provides liens on the property, which in the form of a loan to get the work done. So you can find them, and that's a good option for you. Siding is usually the first thing people think of, but it's actually not our highest risk really. And many of the risks to siding are mitigated by having that 5 feet of non-combustible zone. You can take care of a lot of your siding risk if you're really good with your 5 feet and pretty good with your 10 feet too. But you don't have to replace your siding necessarily unless it looks like the image in the middle or something close to that, in which case you might want to get on that. This photo is the same photo I just showed of the window. I show it again here because we had the crack in the window from that exposure, but the siding is completely undamaged, right? So siding can withstand some heat. If you have vulnerable siding, it's great to replace it with a non-combustible option. But as you prioritize what you're going to do, you might not need to have that first on the list. And does this work is the question. And I do not see that this is live. The link for that video seems to be missing.
I'm sorry, I will pull that up.
Nah, it's all right. I'm out of time anyway. But this video, which if we can get it up, we can show it in the Q&A. This is a great video, which shows this is a vulnerable house with a fence attached, plants and mulch. And this is a hardened home. They set this fire going on the ground there, and that thing on the left goes away. The thing on the right looks great. So this does work. This home retrofit guide, which we have the link for later, this is awesome for learning what you need to know about how you can fix vulnerabilities on your deck, on your siding, everything. This is a great publication, so I can't recommend it high enough. So we have been doing a bunch of inspections in your area, and please feel free to ask more questions later. A lot of homes in that area do have have wood siding, but again, that's not your highest risk probably. The higher risk is vegetation and stuff in that zone 0, as well as things like unenclosed eaves and that combustible fence at 43%. So we are seeing a lot of risks on the structures in the area that are things that have been identified in our assessments. And if you sign up for a full assessment, you can really have a great conversation with the assessor to look at exactly what you can do and the order you should do it in. Speaking of which, I'm going to introduce Kate Wan, who is our awesome program person for fire prevention at Permit Sonoma. So Kate has been running the assessment program. So take it away.
Thank you. And Cindi, wow, you just really gave a lot of great information for people and answered a lot of questions, I hope, for people already just by what you said. But education is key. And there's a lot of great information out there, including this wildfire home retrofit guide. There are many more things like that. CAL FIRE has some great resources. There'll be some on our website, links to other things, and we have some more links later on as well right here. The readyforwildfire.org, the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, the IBHS, they're the ones who guide the insurance companies as to what to ask people for in terms of what they want you to do to prepare your home. So check out that website as well. They have a checklist for prepared home and prepared home plus. And as Carolyn said, one of the best ways you can learn about your home is to request a full assessment from our assessors. We are operational with full assessments until the rain comes in our project areas. So if you haven't had an assessment, do request one. There's a link in the chat. You can email wrc@sonomacounty.gov to request it. There's a lot of different ways on our website to request it. So please go ahead and request a full assessment and we can give you better information or additional information. Carolyn, next slide, please. If you have had an assessment, you may not have accessed it yet. So we definitely encourage you to sign in, access your report, use QR codes. And if that's difficult, just again, email. Go ahead and email wrc@sonomacounty.gov and we can set you up with a full assessment and also help you access your report. So the report contents are in this order. You get a summary and you get defensible space recommendations. But one of the best things about these reports is that they come with pictures of what the assessors saw. They come in with a tablet. They walk with you around your house. They point out things and say, hey, we recommend this, we recommend that. And they take a picture of it. And then it comes in the report so you can see exactly what they're talking about. They start with defensible space issues, they go on to home hardening issues, or they might do it in a different order, but this is how the report comes out to you. And then they'll list some of the things they see that you're doing already that is great. You've already put some good risk reductions in place, and they list the wildfire resilient items that you've already done. It ends with a checklist of the things you can still do. And if you want to use the app that we have, it's called Fire Aside. It allows you to log in, access your report, and you can go to your checklist and you can actually check things off and show that you've resolved that. And they can actually take that off your report or show that it is resolved. So it's a good tool for you, and it's a good tool to see just what you're up against on your own home. A lot of the frequently asked questions I get have to do with what happens to these reports. They are being stored right now and safely. They are meant for educational purposes only. This information is not meant to be shared with the insurance companies. It's not meant to be shared with any code enforcement. This is for you and for your information and for your educational purposes. So we really hope you do take advantage of this program. We're live with full assessments for the next year, but we can't operate during the rainy season. So probably your best bet is to get one soon before rainy season arrives. So next slide. Taking action. When you have a report or you have information, start small. Don't be overwhelmed by what's on the list, but start close to the home. Start with the things that Carleone emphasized. Start with the vents, or get it some of the mesh and put it behind the existing vents. Start with, these people are doing here, just raking away the combustible mulch. Do things that are simple, get it done during fire season, and then you can reevaluate. After you do some of the easy things and clear your roof off, then you say, okay, what was the next thing she said on the list? And you can go back to this presentation, which will be available, and go back to that home hardening retrofit guide and see, okay, what else is it that I can do next? You can prioritize your actions. If you do hire a contractor, just hire and contract carefully. Make sure you give them a list of things you want them to do in writing, and give them maybe that home retrofit guide to guide them. Say, hey, we want it done this way. You can call and ask for help from your fire district, from Permit Sonoma. For now, you can email me at the wrc@sonomacounty.gov, so you can get help if you have questions on that. So we really encourage you, just don't be afraid to take small steps first. It just leads to bigger steps later, and we really appreciate you attending this webinar, because that is a first step. Next slide, please. I would like to hand this back to Chief Foreman to go ahead and remind you about some of the important alerts in evacuation safety. Cindi?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kate. Appreciate that. So I touched on a little bit of this in my first really rapid conversation with you guys, because I know we really value your time. And one thing that I want to make sure that we hit home with you today is our Sheriff's Department is in charge of evacuations. Essentially, that means that if we go into a situation, whether that be fire, flood, tsunami, because we've gone through all of those, which is crazy, our Sheriff's Department is responsible for that for notifying our communities if we have evacuation orders, warnings. And so one thing that we have to do is make sure that we are tuned in to every opportunity to get that information. But first and foremost, if you don't know what your evacuation zone is, you're not going to be able to tap the information that's available. So I'm going to tell you right now, every time I go to a community event, I take a few special items that I will offer to the public and say, hey, what's your evacuation zone? And if they tell me right off the gate, they get a really great prize. But what I want you to know is that you should know your evacuation zone, and not just your evacuation zone, but you need to know the evacuation zones that are around you, particularly if you, and let me rephrase, for my residents that live in Sonoma County Fire District, if we go under evacuation warnings in your area, my advice to you is take it as an order and please pack and go. We are really limited on our evacuation routes and our current infrastructure within our river area. It's not like we have a big freeway that we can drive to. We are very limited on our evacuation routes. So my best advice to our river community is, if you get an evacuation warning, go at the warning, don't wait for the order. And also know the zones around you. I will tell you right now, my zone is 3G1, and you should be able to know that right off the tip of your tongue. However, if you don't, put it into your phone, please. Write it on your go bag, because we didn't talk about that tonight, but everybody here should have a go bag 24/7, 365, because it's not just fire. We live in a fire, flood, earthquake, tsunami area. So you should all have go bags 24/7, 365. Make sure that you have that evacuation zone right there on your go bag, and not just for where you live. You should have that evacuation zone for where you work and where your kids go to school. You need to be as tuned in and educated as you can be. And they've put some great resources up here on the screen to talk about that. And the Sheriff's Department has a program of evacuation tags, and I'm sorry they're not here tonight. However, we've done a really good job collaboratively with our Sheriff's Department to get those evacuation tags out into the community. And essentially what those do is those give first responders the ability to drive by a property and not have to spend resources resources and time ensuring that people have evacuated that property. If that evacuation tag is there, that gives us the opportunity to move on and help somebody that really needs our help. And it doesn't mean that our whole community doesn't need our help, but that helps us identify people that are really in need. Those evacuation tags can be got through the Sheriff's Department. The substation there in Guerneville has them, and those are a really important tool for us. And I know that there's a lot of questions that will come up about if we put those up, people will know we evacuated, and then looters come in. And I just want to let you know, when there's an evacuation warning or an order, the whole world knows that's happening. It's not just the criminals and the bad people. It's put out for the world to know. So it's not like that's a super secret. That's areas under evacuation. And our sheriffs and the resources that we bring in to backfill all of that support, they really lock down those areas. And all the fires we've had, and I've been through all of them, the amount of the looting or those kind of concerns that the community has related to evacuations is minimal, very minimal compared to the disasters we've gone through. So you got to get out. We want you to get out. And it's important for you to let us know that you're out, and those tags should go on your gate or your front door. And please never put those tags out until you're actually leaving. Because if you go out and put that tag on your gate and you go back in and you have a cardiac event or something happens and you don't get back out, that's a tragedy for us. So when you're going to use those, we want you to use them. We want you to have them on your go bags, but we want you to put them on as you're leaving. And again, remember my personal advice to you as your fire marshal for where you guys live. I encourage you to leave at the warning. Do not wait for the order.
Please do sign up for our SoCo Adapt email list. The only thing that we know about you is your mailing address, which is all we get from the assessor. So if you want to stay abreast of what's going on, we need you to provide us with your contact data. So you can do that. That way, if we get one of the new grants that they're applying for to do the incentive program and stuff, we'll let you know what's coming down the pike. So please do sign up for that list. You can either use the QR code here, or you can go to our website at socoadapts.org, or you can again email wrc@sonomacounty.gov. That's a new extension for those of you. Sonoma County, there's no hyphen in it anymore, which there used to be.
I
So
just put a link in the chat also.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So please do sign up for our mailing list. That's enormously helpful. And thank you for your time.
We have some questions in the chat. There's actually a few. There was one on Measure H, which Cindi responded. So if you have questions about Measure H, please contact Chief Foreman. She put her email in, and it's actually, I think we might have put it in elsewhere, but I will put that in a moment. And then there's a question that it's a long one, so I'm going to read it off. It's in the chat also, but somebody would like advice on dealing with my specific problematic topography and narrow, poorly unmaintained roads in Wood Heights. Actually, all of the hillsides in the lower river valley could use greater outreach and education and funding. Our very steep hillside can only be cleared by hanging from a harness, but I've managed to forge paths to help reach the top of our property. Have to take it down to dirt because no native fire fuel is invasive in our area. Or non-native fire fuel is invasive in our area, especially French broom. Have to balance erosion control with fire clearance. Advice for native evergreen ground cover that can survive where it used to be heavily wooded with redwoods. We've already cut down bay trees and maintained them as small shrubs. Literature should include advice on pulling, not cutting broom. Yearly attention to regrowth. None of my neighbors do this. Another risk is parking in the public right-of-way, which we've had no luck getting enforcement.
So Carol Leon, I think you can jump in on part of this, but I will say that that comment hits multiple issues for me. We are well aware of the parking and the access concerns that exist in the community. We are working with Supervisor Hopkins' office and CHP, and while that is not immediately fixed for a lot of people, it is getting better. But when we're talking about a wooded community, and I think I heard that you hang from a harness. My gosh, that is just, wow, that is impressive. But what I will say is, and Carrie Leon could probably give better information on this because I have to say, I've learned everything I know about defensible space and reasonable planting and all of that from her. And she really is the best person to answer some of those questions.
Yeah, and the first thing I'm going to say, which never makes me a very popular girl, is do remember roads are a completely separate issue because they are critical for critically to have safety for firefighters coming in, and just as importantly, safety for you guys going out. So roadsides are critical. So focusing the nature of work that you're doing in these very overgrown forests, this is a landscape that was evolved with fire in it. And we stopped letting fire in it about 150 years ago. And then we logged and have done all kinds of other things that have really changed the natures of those forests as they were 300 years ago. And we're paying the price for that now. Fire behavior is very different in the redwoods than it was historically. So I understand the importance of the issue. There are a variety of groups who are looking for funding to do larger scale projects. If we get funding for our phase 2, this project could provide some of that funding. That was our original vision. Whether we'll get that funded again, I don't know. A variety of groups, including the RCD, have been looking for funding to do larger scale fuels management in those areas. And it is important, but I have to go back and say one more time, the thing that is most likely to burn your house down is probably within 5 feet. So I get how important this is to do these larger scale projects, not only for fire safety, but for the health of the forests themselves. I understand how important it is, but don't forget not to turn your back on your own house and your own defensible space when you're planning out what needs to be done. That's your first level of defense, because again, those embers, even if you have a beautifully maintained forest, you're still getting embers during a wildland fire. Those embers can travel. In Australia, there was a 26-mile documented ember cast. We've seen at least a couple of miles in Sonoma County. So even if you have a beautifully maintained forest all around you, your home itself is still vulnerable to those embers. So taking care of that is also really important and should take up a lot of our time and energy.
Yeah, and I think I battle this conversation almost daily about our current infrastructure, meaning our roadways. There is nothing right now that we can do to change the existing infrastructure. It's not to say that we can't change in the future, but we have to look at what we have right now. We are not going to be able to go in the next month or year, or maybe even 10 years, and widen roadways and make things more accessible. We are really living with the infrastructure we have. And if we focused on nothing but trying to change that, we would not change anything, honestly. And so we are stuck with some of those pieces. It doesn't mean we can't work around them. It doesn't mean there aren't other ways that we can, but we are not going to, in this conversation or many of these, be able to change the existing infrastructure that we all live within.
It's a challenging issue.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I live in an area that's at very high risk to wildfire as well, as does Cindi. And I spend a lot of time outside doing stuff. And I have to fight with myself to keep myself in the 0 to 5. I'll catch myself wandering off and, I need to deal with this over here, or where's this down at the bottom of the property? When I actually manage to get projects done in that area, I sleep better and I feel better. It is taking back some of my power, as Cindi said. I'm taking some of my power back for what is bound to come one of these days. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing the right thing. So, Chris, a lot of questions I see from you about where are the assessments available. And we did have assessments available in your area with the Wildfire Adapted Grant Program, but this is a different footprint. So we can't offer any more assessments in Timber Cove at this time with this program.
Okay, we are right at just 1 minute after 7. Are there any other questions that people have? Do you want to put them in the chat real quick and we can try and answer those, or yeah, do you have any more questions? Sorry, the lights went off. There we go. Sorry, I was looking a little creepy there. Timbered windows, Erica. Yes, Carolyn actually put an answer on that in the chat about the current code as of 2007 for new construction in WUI areas is for 1 tempered pane and 1 regular pane. Caroline, you want to sorry, you can answer that.
Yeah, so the deal is the tempered glass fails at over 600, and annealed glass, which is the stuff that breaks into big pointy bits, fails much earlier. And that was why the building code was modified in 2007 when we created the Wildland Urban Interface Building Code, which came onto the books in 2008, I believe. And that is where they started asking for those 2 panes, 1 tempered, one annealed. I when I bought the windows that I have, it was before the code came in, and I was asking for 2 tempered for 1 and 1, and the company wouldn't do it. So I ended up getting all tempered panes, which in retrospect, I'm very glad I did, because I have now that double very high temperature glass, which will help survive. There are other things you can do if you can't afford to replace your windows. I know that's a hefty expense task. Like you can make covers out of something, drill holes, have those covers ready, have them numbered, put your hooks, whatever you're going to hang them from, in the wall. So everything is ready. You know exactly where this panel goes. You can cover them, and that will help a lot. So there are things you can do. That home retrofit guide has a lot of information about those kinds of other things we can do if we can't afford to completely.
Hey, Carol Ann, would you mind, if we have the time, can you talk about the group up in on St. Helena Road that actually retrofitted with gutters on the windows, and that building survived in the glass fire, which is crazy.
Yeah, Cindi and I and some other folks had been working for decades. We started working with them in the early 2000s with a community that's up in the hills in a really bad fireplace. And you can tell it's bad because it's been hit in 17 and 20. And so they just had burned. It's built to burn over there. And we'd been working very intensely with this organized community group and had given them a lot of advice about what to do to harden the primary big sort of meeting hall they had on the property. In 17, lots of home loss in the area, only a couple of the homes survived. But that building that they had put shutters on, they had changed the vents, they had made a non-combustible space at the bottom of combustible siding. They did everything we asked, and that building did survive without active suppression.
And it was in the heart of the glass fire. This building shouldn't have survived, but it did.
Yeah, so this stuff, I can't tell you, it really does work. And I think the most important piece of advice that I have to throw out really quickly in the end of this discussion is that you don't have to do it all, but you do have to start. Just get started. And because if you start with whatever you can do now, whatever you can afford to do, whatever physically you can do, you've done something and you can start marking things off the list. But if you get overwhelmed by, I've been working on this for 20 years, I'm not going to lie. And am I done mostly? Am I done completely? No. But where would I be if I hadn't started? The really bad siding on my siding slide, I'm going to admit in public, that was my house. It is now siding. It is now stucco, and my house is pretty hardened. So just take it as you can.
Thank you very much. All right. Thanks, everybody. Tia, I did see your last comment. That's got to be frustrating. And if nobody has any more questions, we're going to go ahead and just close out for the evening. We are super grateful that you came and that you are interested in learning how to make your properties more safe, and not only your properties, but your communities safer from wildfire. So thank you very much. And everybody have a fabulous evening and a great Labor Day weekend. Be safe, make good choices. Good night, everybody.